Hi, welcome to SBR Forum Videos. I'm Peter Loshak. This is Into the Weekend with Bet DSI, the call we do every week with Brent, the headlines manager at DSI Sportsbook, where we take a look ahead at the upcoming weekend's major sporting events and what kind of action Brent has seen or anticipates for it. Right now, it is the first week in April, so we've got the Final Four coming up. We've also got the MLB regular season starting, the NBA season, and the NHL winding down. Brent, thanks for being back with us once again.
It's good to be back on, Peter.
All right, let's start out with the Final Four. You know, two big games, too. A very interesting handicapping situation. Syracuse, Michigan, Wichita State, Louisville. Louisville's a double-digit favorite in the Final Four. That hasn't been seen for quite a while, if ever. It might not have ever been seen. What kind of action have you got in those two games so far?
I mean, so far it's been just a whole lot of public action. We haven't seen the sharps really come in on either of these games, and at this point, if they haven't come in yet, they probably won't. I mean, you figure if they're going to jump on a line where they saw some value, they would have done it already, but that just hasn't been the case. Definitely have more money on Wichita State, which makes a whole lot of sense. I mean, 10.5 points when you're talking about the four best teams based on current form, they should get some support, and I think the public definitely will be on Michigan State or Wichita State, and they have so far.
So you haven't gotten any sharp action at all. Is that normal for Final Four games? Because I personally usually do pass on them myself, but I would expect that, because the lines are so tight and the teams, by definition, all have momentum and all are playing well and probably are appropriately valued, but don't usually get at least some sharp action on these Final Four lines?
It all depends on the number, and I guess if the public drops it up one way or another, it's not that we don't get sharp action at this point in time, but it's kind of like the Super Bowl. I mean, generally, the Super Bowl, when you get to that point in time, the sharp action you see is stuff betting props and things of that nature. It's not much action on the game where a sharp is going to see great value on one side or the other. And this is a similar case with the Final Four here. And you take a game like Michigan versus Syracuse. It's kind of one of those tough games to figure out based on the contrast in styles and how they play. And the same thing with Wichita State and Louisville. It's just they're kind of tough games. And like you said, they're basically the four best teams at this point, and they're all in good form. So how you decipher between the four of them, and really, like I said, so far we've got decent action, but it's strictly public action, Peter.
All right, that's how I see it. But I mean, even on the Super Bowl, a lot of times you get conflicting sharp action on the side and total, but you still do see sharp action on just on the game lines, on the sides and totals.
Yeah, at this point, no. I mean, if you look at the count on, just take Michigan, Syracuse, for example, the number of bets I'm off on the count is 8 bets. Now, we've taken close to 2,000 bets, and the count, I'm off 8, which is absolutely nothing. The money in Wichita State-Louisville game, same thing. It's a difference of 4,000, and we've taken a lot of action. It's just there's just no difference between these teams in terms of the betting action so far.
All right, so the public's pounding the hell out of these lines. The sharps are staying off then.
So far, yeah. I mean, like I said, if you see a major move tomorrow, you're probably going to be some sharps with some really big money coming in. But at this point, they haven't touched anything, and if there was value to be had, they would have done it by now.
All right, what about the first half over 61 in Wichita State, Louisville? That's my super sharp play for the Final Four. You haven't gotten any sharp action on that?
Well, actually, what we've got is more public action playing the over in that game. Not the first half specifically, but we've got in terms of our count, it's probably about 4-1 on the over in that game, Peter. So right now it looks like you're going with the public. But I'm not calling you a square.
Yeah,
I'm just saying you're going the same way as the public.
I would only take the first half over 61. All right, well, we'll see how it turns out. No, sometimes on these big games the public is spot on. All right, so how has the tournament gone though so far? How did the first bunch of rounds go? Did you do well with them?
Honestly, the tournament's been fantastic this year. We did really, really well to them. I mean, the early games, we had some sharp guys coming on the dogs. They would take the dog first half, dog money line, dog in the game as well. But we've had the action has been just fantastic. It's really good betting wise. I mean, it's like a mini version of the Super Bowl, but you multiply it over the number of days, and it's been fantastic for us in terms of volume and how well we've done. Right.
I mean, like Florida Gulf Coast, those games generate a lot of interest. And what was the action on that? Was the public betting on them to lose, or were the sharps coming in on them? How'd that go?
You get a lot of public action jumping on these teams who are hot too. I mean, Wichita State is a classic example too. We got a lot of support for Wichita State, Michigan, Syracuse, Louisville. Those are kind of teams that you hear about. But definitely the public likes to get behind these Cinderella teams like Florida Gulf Coast, and the sharps actually were on them as well in certain points of the tournament.
If you did well, I'm assuming that the public got badly burned on some of the games, right?
Not only public, but it's just you get so much volume, and you apply, you take a small edge and apply it over all that volume, you can't help but do really well.
All right. Well, a lot of great info as always, Brent. All right. So now let's move on. MLB has just begun. NBA and NHL regular seasons are winding down. Do you have anything to say about any of those?
Well, it's interesting because, the Sharps are sharp for a good reason.
Yes.
You take like a team like Houston, of course. I mean, you figure the public is going to be betting against a team who just on paper looks really, really bad. But opening night, you got Houston versus Texas, and the Sharps were all over Houston. Public was all over Texas. So that was one of those cases where you had a real distinguished split. Houston was getting like plus 150 back.
Right.
And you saw the first couple of games of the Cleveland-Toronto series. The public was heavily, heavily betting the Blue Jays, of course, all the offseason changes they made and all the additions they made. Cleveland was just Cleveland, but the Sharps were taking plus 160, plus 155, taking big value there, Peter.
Are there any sides that the Sharps have been betting in the early going that they've lost with?
Not really. No,
Yeah.
not so far.
Yeah.
The Sharps have been pretty good, and they've been picking their spots in terms of playing like a team like Texas and the Angels, for example. You expect those to be over teams, but in a game, we're talking Friday here, those two teams are playing each other, and the Sharps are on the under 9.5 there, and you figure, Texas and the Angels, you got to bet over all those bats. No, they went under there. So,
wow.
And they also, when they see a team like the Angels as a dog, the Sharps are jumping on that stuff.
We'll talk a lot more about baseball as the season progresses. What about the NBA and the NHL regular season? I mean, it's winding down. So, but I find that like at this point in the season in the NBA, especially in the NBA and also in the NHL, there's a lot of games you kind of want to pass on because there's a lot of unknowns. But there's certain spots where like teams have made radical changes, either for the worse or for the better, that the year-long stats can't account for, and that there can be some great betting spots in these at this point in the year. So I'm assuming that you are getting some big sharp action on some of these lines in the NBA and NHL.